Bing
'Tis the season
bong,
to be jolly and joyous.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da.
What up, Frugal Nation? My name's Felix, and of course I would download a house. It would basically be stupid not to. Today we're working on a couple of fun projects. One, I will be doing some visible mending of my baby's clothes, and then also I have these VHSs that actually inside of the VHSs is home videos, and I will be converting those to digital because it would be illegal for me to convert all of The Land Before Time into DVD and then give it to family members for Christmas. So I would never do that. But these cases I'm using to house home videos that sometimes sound like the Land Before Time series. I borrowed the VHS to digital converter from the library yet again. I had a great time using it last time. We have a library of things in Salem. If you live in Salem, check it out. Very cool. They have 2 of these actually. The only thing that's kind of a pain about it is that you have to do it while you're doing something else so that you can pay attention to what's on the screen because it can only record live. Like as it's happening. Does that make sense? So like the little converter, it's just recording what's on the converter screen. So if you press the record button before all the commercials start, you get all the commercials. Or if you do it right as the movie starts, you get from that point on, right? Does that make sense? So typically what I do is I start recording. Sometimes I get the commercials, sometimes I don't. It depends on how I'm feeling. The commercials are kind of fun. They're like a weird time capsule, right? So I usually like to have them if it's on a movie particularly. And then I set a timer on my phone for how long the home movie is, which it typically says conveniently on the back, approximately this many minutes of all home movies, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, let's get started with that. Let me set that up. That way we've got some things converting while we visible mend. I did when we did a recession core video, we talked more in depth about this. So I'm just kind of gonna like set that up and have it go as we're doing this. Yay, libraries of things. We love a library of things. And we've got that set up. Unrelated, because this is my home videos, but I'm thinking about The Land Before Time. Anyway, did you guys ever, this is gonna be an example of how existential I was as a child, but I just remember as a kid watching The Land Before Time, and I was really concerned about like when the meteor was gonna hit. I was like at any second, these guys could just be wiped from the planet. Which is so like tense. But obviously they made like, I don't even know, like 7, 8 movies. And obviously in like the second one, they weren't gonna be like, and here's where the meteor comes that kills all the dinosaurs. Anyway, I was very concerned for them. So that's a lot. And now we're locking in. I have these baby pants. I was gonna say I thought they were like Carter's, but I don't know. We either got these from a swap or they were a hand-me-down or we thrifted them. I've got this little teeny tiny hole right here. Really not bad. I might just like stitch that up because I don't think it necessarily needs padding. And then these pants, we've been getting a lot of good wear out of, and they're gonna fit him for a bit longer for sure. These are the Children's Place 3T. So they're technically like a size up, and then they just are worn on the knees particularly, and then there's like a hole here on the knees. So for these ones, I think I'm gonna start with these, and what I'm gonna do is make little knee patches. I think I might make them like squares kind of, so that we can encompass as much as we can. And I'm trying to decide, so I've decided I want to use this fabric because it's just like kind of beefy, and I've been using it. I actually have my pillow, hold on. I got this fabric for free at an estate sale, and I used it to make animal cracker cookies for the baby's nursery that need to be stitched up in a couple of places actually, because they've been getting some use. All this to say, free fabric that I've had for a million years that just keeps getting used for good things. I am going to do it kind of like double, which I wouldn't normally worry about doing for a patch, but these are gonna get a lot of wear and tear. If you're not somebody who knows this about kids or whatever, 3T, 4T, 5T, once kids start walking, whatever size they are at that point, they stay that size for longer. They grow so fast as babies, and then once they're like sprinting around, they like hang out around the same size because they were using all of their energy for growing before, and now they're using so much more of their energy to sprint in circles, and you have to chase them. So we're gonna double these pieces of fabric, but I'm gonna cut. This is, I think, a little too long, and also it got crazy. This fabric is also nice that it has kind of like a grid on it. So this is my patch size. I'm gonna cut out 3 more of these, so 4 total. If I was using a more heavy duty fabric, I wouldn't have to do this. I just wanna use this fabric. Great. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm cutting these out like a little bit bigger than the fabric and also kind of ugly at first, and then trimming them to get them closer to the size that I want them to be. This is not like an absolute science, and also kind of the idea with visible mending is that you can tell that something has been loved and like used repeatedly, so I'm really not concerned with it looking immaculate in any way. I'm mostly concerned with it being functional. With visible mending, you sometimes, particularly for like holes in the knees, folks will do it. We'll take the fabric and put it underneath the patch fabric and then sew over the top of it. For this, we are going to put the patch fabric on top so that it is that much more obvious that it's visibly mended. And also just because I think that'll be cuter for it to be little patches on the knees. So for these, I have already threaded my needle, and I just picked a color that I thought wouldn't like clash with the vibe that we have going on here with the camo. Oh man, I've clearly made a horrible mistake in setting it down, knowing that it's so long. Don't tangle, you're so sexy. Okay. Hold on, team. Anyway, here's my obnoxiously long needle and thread. For this, I am just going to do, I don't even know, like a blanket stitch maybe. So the idea with a blanket stitch, if you've never seen one, is you are pulling the thread in such a way that it gets caught as you go on to your next stitch. Starting it is the hardest part. You do a regular whip stitch, and then, let me get up close and personal. Start it regular, and then you go through this loop again to kind of tack it there. You can see I am a menace to myself with my very long thread. Okay, yeah. And then because we've done that twice, it's kind of like stuck coming out there. And then when we go into our next stitch, like you do a regular whip stitch, but you loop this over it. And then we pull. And so then it gets caught and it makes this cute little like, okay, we see how it's like a whip stitch, but then there's like also thread at the top. It's kind of hard to tell with this thread, because my idea was that it would sort of like mostly blend in. But anyway, yeah, it just kind of makes this little like scallopy-ish edge depending on how wide you make them. It's cute, it's fine. Presumably it's a little bit sturdier than if you were to just do a whip stitch. I don't know if that's actually true. It does feel true. Okay, cool, yeah. So I'm just gonna whip stitch around this and then whip stitch around the other one, and then we'll get to putting them on the pants. So all I'm doing right now, this is not actually part of like the visible mending of the pants. This is just me making the patches that will go on the pants. You don't have to do this, particularly if you're using a thicker fabric, if you're using like a denim or something else. Some people like to finish off their edges on patches like this because it like looks nicer. But yeah, it's not something that's necessary, particularly if it's going underneath the part that you're mending. you don't have to do it. I would say in general, it gives it a little bit more longevity, depending on how much wear the area gets and what kind of fabric you're using. There's not really a wrong way to do this. It's like, if it works for you, then great, that's what we wanted. So time lapse. Here I'd like to answer for my fabric crimes. I realize that I am putting a very light colored fabric on the knees of a toddler's outfit. My justification for that is these are play clothes. If these were slacks for him to wear to a fancy event, then I would certainly not mend these in this way. But this is the color that I had, and I think it's going to be fine. We can just wash them in hot water or bleach them or whatever. I did most of this visible mending project on the move. I rolled up a washcloth that I could use to make sort of a leg shape while I did a basting stitch, which is when you take embroidery floss or thread in an obnoxious color and you just use it to sort of tack down the fabric with the intention of cutting it out later. So this isn't going to be there forever. It's just to keep it in place. You can see this is the first few rows done. This is me doing it horizontally across, and then I was ready to cut out the basting stitch because I had done it horizontally all the way down. Some folks use like a grid and a friction pen to do this. I was not worried about my lines being absolutely beautiful, especially because they're like so low-key in this fabric. Okay, it's now many hours into haircut later. Hello team, we're back. I did the majority of this in the car driving and made myself really motion sick. Do you guys ever have that thing where you're like 30-ish years old and so you haven't really been motion sick your entire life, and then all of a sudden you'll be in the car and you're 30-ish, and then you'll be looking down for an extended period of time and you'll be like, oh my god, I feel like shit. Like, why am I so sick right now? Like, do I need to eat something? Like, have I not had enough water? And then you're like, oh, I've been either staring at my phone or working on a craft project for many minutes. That's what I have. Something about that inner ear, just, he ain't the same. It happens to you when you get old, and I'm comfortable with that, but I do keep forgetting. When people do like legitimate sashiko mending, visible mending, it's like the pretty style where you do like the grid. They have these really cool patterns that you can do that make like flowers and like other stuff, but it's just kind of like, it's on like a vertical by horizontal grid. I have never done it officially fancily in that way. What I will say is that if you are doing it kind of without thinking and you're playing sort of fast and loose with your proportions and like what things are crossing and whatnot, and you have a thread that is highly contrasting against your fabric where you can really see the thread in the fabric, when you are doing even an abstract pattern with a lot of right angles, it is important to keep in mind that you are not accidentally putting a hate symbol on your visible mending project. So I would just say be cautious of that. You don't have to worry about it if it's so like low-key as this. Like, it would be there's no way that this is gonna look like that, you know what I mean? This is gonna be kind of like a checkery kind of energy. But just, if it's not something you've thought about before and you've never done like a pattern or a decoration or something with a lot of right angles, just keep that in mind. That's something to be aware of. As I am doing this project, I started, I don't even know, on one of these corners, and I went down and then looped underneath and then looped over and then up, and I've just basically kind of been going back and forth, and then I'm doing the same thing now vertically. Really just taking care to make sure that once I get to the edge, that I like tactfully go around the edge. That way the sort of like lip of this fabric doesn't like pull up and do something obnoxious, which honestly really wouldn't be a big deal if it did for this, but I just like the way that it looks better when it's kind of like down the way that I would like for it to be. Yeah, my goal and my dream with this video was to do a bunch of visible mending, and then because it's Vlogmas and because there's been so much going on, I really didn't have the time. So it's kind of just these pants, which is great because it bullied me into doing these pants. So perhaps another video another time, or maybe I'll just show you guys sometime some other things that I've visibly mended. I find visibly mending is really helpful for children's clothes. Really helpful because it does not matter almost at all, like toddler clothes particularly. There's not going to be any judgment or bad vibes for a kid to wear something that somebody has like really lovingly like made sure doesn't have a hole in it anymore, you know? Kids wear pajamas all the time. Kids wear Pikachu costumes. It's like, you know, it's whatever. Like, it's not. As a adult person who wears clothes in real life and mostly sort of like athleisure comfy clothes, it's like very hard to get me in an outfit that's not comfortable. I do have a couple pairs of sweat shorts that like they're so visibly mended that it just doesn't, I just can't really wear them anywhere. They're great as jammies and like around the house things. And then I feel like the really snazzy kind of sashiko mending that you see that people do with like jeans and like denim and other things, because yeah, that just looks like a cool decoration, I feel like, on those. Whereas if you're doing visible mending on a already soft material, it looks, I don't know what like the word I'm looking for is. Anyway, I don't think you can ruin anything by visibly mending it. But if you have something that is like already pajama adjacent, doing visible mending to it is only going to make it more pajama adjacent, is something important to realize. I also realize I've now edited half of this video, so I'm coming to you now from way the future of when we started this journey together. I realized that I said these pants are 3T and that they're a size too big. These are the really sick kids pants that have the little like waist snatch thingy in it. So that's why they are working for us right now when he's really not a 3T. Huge fan of that. Huge fan of that in kids' clothes. I feel like we should be employing that more in adults' clothes. Adjustable waistband. Why aren't we making pants that can be worn in maternity and beyond, you know? Or through body changes, you know? It's because of capitalism. It's because they don't want you to be able to keep wearing those things. That's why, team. Jot that down. And that is exactly why you should be visibly mending your clothes. Say, no, fuck these guys. I don't care that these pants were free to me, or $3, or I don't even know, maybe like $20 new. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is the time investment that I am making in taking this item that was getting close to needing to be scrapped to be used for something else or thrown away by somebody else or whatever. And now it's something that my child will be able to continue to wear for months, and the next child will also continue to be able to wear for months. So take that. Fast fashion. Yeah, this is a really great keep your hands busy project also. Pretty easy to do in the car if you don't get motion sick in the car. Great to do on a train, great to do while you're watching TV, great to do while you're at a school board or city council meeting. Excellent to do there. I find that with city council meetings that I've had to go to, there's typically at least like a 45-minute chunk where they're just talking about like weird, boring city stuff, wastewater treatment centers and other things, which I want to be clear is actually pretty interesting and is like very cool that, you know, they're talking about it and doing it, because I'm not qualified at this point in my life, at least, to make decisions and vote for funding or whatever for wastewater or size of trash cans or whatever else. But not really something you need to be locked into necessarily as just a regular person who's coming to yell at the city council about something completely unrelated. So you may as well bring a little project, a little embroidery, a little visible mending. When I was there, I was making Labubu's for mine and Morgan's nibblings, the twins, fake Labubu's, obviously. I was there with my friend Vic, and she was like, oh, I should have brought a craft. And I was like, oh, I have plenty of felt. Like, did you want to like do something? She was like, oh my God, yeah. And she made a really cute Christmas ornament while we were there. I used to kind of worry about stuff like that, like working on a craft project in public, like, oh, like, are people gonna say something, or like, what are they gonna think, or like whatever. And now, you know, at age 29, technically not 30, I am really beyond giving a shit. And it's also kind of a good conversation starter. Sometimes people will be stoked about what you're up to, particularly older folks. I have found will be like, what are you working on? Okay, go off. I hate sewing in like pant legs and sleeves and things, because you can't just flip over what you're doing. You have to like turn it inside out to make sure you haven't made like a huge rat's nest in the back. Yeah, I just really strongly believe that in the next 50 years, certainly in the next 50, if not in the next like 20 years, I just really feel like there's in some capacity going to be a ban on making new garments, like be that children's clothes or adults' clothes or whatever else. I really think, partially because of that, it's like good. I think we should be taking care of the articles of clothing that we have that are in circulation. I also wish I had like a better sort of wrapping up button for this video about not the Land Before Time, but about my home videos that live in Land Before Time boxes. And what I need to do is go back to the Goodwill bins and get a whole bunch of DVD cases, decorate those DVD cases, themed to the Land Before Time for no reason, because obviously it's home videos turned into DVDs that are in there, because again, it would be illegal for me to do anything other than that. But at the bins, what I do is I look through the DVDs, and a lot of them are like really scratched up anyway, so I like don't feel bad. And I go through and I see which ones are the most scratched up. I have like fine DVD like cases, and I take the DVDs out because I don't want to pay for the weight of the DVD at the bins. And then yeah, I take those cases and then make like a cute little construction paper or something else, like whatever, print out a picture, draw a picture, whatever, cute little case of the movie. I've been really excited to see other people also talking about physical media recently. I think it's where we're headed, y'all. I think it's where we're headed. The streaming services, they're an insane evil monopoly. This is looking really cute. Also maybe a little bit like gauze. When I use this fabric to make the animal cookie pillows, somebody was like, oh my god, like these blankets, like they don't make them anymore. They're like, I don't remember how old they said they were. I want to say they said they were like 50 years old or something, kind of cuckoo bananas, which I think is even more fun. That's why I particularly like doing visible mending with like reclaimed fabric. And when I get into weaving, when I have any time in my life, so maybe when the baby is 20, I really want to get into weaving with like reclaimed materials. So like old destroyed sweaters that I have like turned back into yarn, or stuffed animals I think would be really fun. Cut them up into strips, weave them into fabric that can then be used for blankets or other things. I was really honestly floored by at the swap that we had of the 3 swaps video, the gift swap that took place. We had an absurd amount of like squishmallows and stuffed animals, and like so many, and I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do with all these? You know, you go to thrift stores, you see so many stuffed animals, and I was like, people just, they don't buy them, like they don't have like quick turnover when it comes to, at least it doesn't seem that way to me, because I feel like there are always so many stuffed animals at stores like that, and they're always priced ridiculously. I don't know if you guys have looked into this, because you know I've been like trying to get cheapy ones to do absurd projects with, and yeah, oftentimes it's like $6 for some squishmallow that some person or kid has had for like clearly a couple of years at least, and they're like, I don't know, just like kind of crusty, and like $6, that is a racket. But anyway, I was really concerned. I was like, what are we gonna do with all of these? And there was not one single stuffed animal left at the end of that swap. It was bananas. It was so cool. It was great. But I think before that moment and that swap, I had been so like, oh my god, stuffed animals are like, I love them. I loved them as a kid. I love them now. But I was like, god, this is something that is like such a problem, because what do you do with them when you're done with them? Like, people don't really feel comfortable like taking them home and washing them, and then these thrift stores are not washing them and then selling them for absurd amounts of money, you know. Anyway, so that restored some of my faith in stuffed animals, but I still think probably they shouldn't make anymore, or at least not ones that are gonna be wildly popular in the way that Squishmallows are. It's just too many. It stresses me out. We are almost done. Oh, I think this is actually maybe done completely with this leg. Maybe. Turn it inside out. Yeah! Yay! Okay, I'll show you the up closies of this. Yay! Hooray! Oh, and then when I tie something off, let me show you. I always believed that I learned this information from my grandma, and then one day I showed her like how I tie something off, and I was like, yeah, I learned that from you, and she was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Here's what I do. Go into the fabric, pop out a little bit closer than that. Go into the fabric, pop through. Loop this around like 2 or 3 times, and then pull. You kind of have to get good at this because if it knots too early, it'll be a pain in the butt. But pull. Get it down like that, and then snip it and tie these 2 strings together because I almost always sew with 2. Some people don't. Some people sew with just like 1 piece of thread. So like, you know, like I have 2, like it's looped 1 time. So I would like tie it off at the end here and then use that. But some folks, they instead have their thread like 1 strand of thread, and so they'll do a really teeny tiny little knot at the end here and then have it just like this, and so like that couldn't be me. I just it freaks me out. I don't feel like it's very secure, so I'm gonna knot this, and it's like a really solidly in there. So this leg that we finished is not actually even the one that had a hole. This is what the whole one looks like. There's the hole, and then the fabric, you can't really tell. I guess you can a little bit, but it's so thin here. It's like really soft. And then down, it's so thin. It's like about to rip through. But now, da-na-na-na-na-na. Hooray. Hooray. Again, that's 1. This one, we're not actually gonna end up finishing in this video. We'll have 1 pant leg done. I do also know that these are not exactly even. I'm not stressed about it. It's for a toddler, and he's gonna look really cute no matter what he wears. He could be in a potato bag and he would look absolutely precious, but I think that this looks really sweet. My favorite way of styling these camo pants is to put him in like a pink Minnie Mouse shirt, or like he's got this, I think it's technically supposed to be a pajama shirt, but it's like a long sleeve, kind of like tighter, like Minnie Mouse shirt, and it's like white and black, and then it's got like red. It's so cute. And he loves Minnie Mouse, loves his Minnie Mouse shirts. Yeah, I guess that's kind of another thing. So like these pants, I wouldn't ever have bought them for my baby under any circumstances, but they were free. And so we have them, and you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting your kid in camo. It's just not like a choice that I would make in like with the dollars that I have, you know what I mean? But I think that adding something like a patch like this to the knees, functional, helpful to the baby. If he falls on pavement, this is gonna help a lot, that's for sure. And then, yeah, I don't know, it just like adds a little bit of personal flair. And I think particularly when you're getting free clothes for kids, you know, you may as well kind of make it your own. And yeah, you can do that via styling or with fun embroidery or all kinds of different ways. But yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out. I feel like it looks really cute and really clean. This one I will do right after this video, probably. But as you can kind of see, like when you, so this one, when we looked at it inside out, it's got all of this sort of like wrinkling that happens, and this one doesn't yet have that on the inside, but it does have this kind of like roundedness on the outside. That just happens as you're sewing. Some people have it's like a tailor's ham is the bigger one, and then my mom just told me the other kind is called a tailor's sausage, and it's like something that you essentially like stick in there that's like hard, and you don't sew into it, you use it to like keep the shape of something as you're sewing it so that it stays kind of like rounded and leaves space for the baby's leg or whatever. If you have any questions, or if you want to learn more about visible mending, or if this is the kind of video that you've like to see, let me know. I don't know if anyone's gonna like actually want to watch this because I feel like it's not quite a tutorial. It's like mostly me chatting and hanging out. So I don't know. Let me know what your vibes are. Tell me your thoughts and feelings. Happy winter solstice, I think, On the 21st day of Vlogmas, Felix showed you some half-done, visibly mended baby pants. And no piracy, not a single piracy crime. I would never do that. Okay, enjoy the bloopers. Hey, if I'm recording, it's hard if you say the baby's name loudly.
Who's up?
Whoa.
He's begging for you to sing.
For me to sing?
Yeah.
Hi, baby. Come here, baby. Twinkle, twinkle, little. You don't want to sing? Now I gotta get your socks on, baby bug. Yeah. We've got cloth.
I'm bringing 2 cloths.
Great. I've gotten pretty good at unknotting thread because I refuse to use like short amounts of thread.